Okay, today what I want to do is I want to talk about the man-in-the-middle attack. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing some ARP poisoning, and we're going to take advantage of a flaw that exists within the ARP protocol. I also want to show how a packet sniffer detects traffic, and we're going to be covering a lot of the material that we did in Lab 2. So when we worked on Project 2, basically what we did was we set up FileZilla over here on our XP machine, and we FTP'd back and forth to the 2003 server. When we did that, we were running Wireshark, a packet sniffer, over here on the XP machine, and we were able to watch all of the traffic going back and forth between us and the 2003 machine. When we were doing that, we noticed that the username and the password were being broadcast in clear text. We were able to get our username, we were able to get our password, but we weren't able to collect any of the other students' usernames or passwords. So when we connected, we were only really seeing our traffic. And the other thing that we saw when we were running the packet sniffer were all of the different ARP requests. So basically, the way that ARP works is ARP is Address Resolution Protocol, and each machine knows its physical hardware IP address, or its hardware MAC address, and its IP address. So what that machine does is every so often it just broadcasts saying, hey, here I am. It's using a protocol called UDP, so that way it's a connectionless protocol. It's basically just shouting out to everyone saying, this is where I'm at. So the XP machine will every once in a while broadcast. They have a little cheat sheet here in the lower right corner. The XP machine basically says, hey, my IP address is 10.7.66.7 and my physical MAC address is A7D3 3F. Now, obviously this isn't a full MAC address. I just wanted to keep the space somewhat tight. And for talking about it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refer to the MAC address as the last two digits. So, for example, XP's MAC address will be 3F, where server 2003 is going to be 2A, and the Tiger box is going to be 1B. When we're referring to its IP address, I'm just going to use the last digit as well. I'm really fortunate here because all of them are unique. So the XP's IP address is going to be 7, the Windows Server 2003 is going to be 5, and the Tiger box is going to be 9. So the XP machine is shouting out its physical MAC address. So it's saying, hey, my MAC address ends in a 3F. So it's going to, the 2003 says, hey, I need 3F, and it's going to grab its IP address, which ends in a 7. Same here, the Tiger box is also going to say, oh, I've got 3F and it ends in a 7. So it's collecting it. Now the XP doesn't have itself in its ARP table, but everyone else will have each other. So it's constantly broadcasting. So the 2003 server saying, hey, I'm 2A, and then 2A, if it had a different IP address, it would update the IP address to the new IP address that the 2003 server is shouting out. So that's also getting the 2A here ending in a 5. So everybody knows everybody's data based upon what each machine is telling each other. So if I wanted to FTP, I would FTP to the 2003 server. Well, the 2003 server I know has an IP address of 10.7.66.5. That's what I am going to type in to FileZilla. When I type that into FileZilla, the only thing the router really cares about is the MAC address. So it's actually going to grab the MAC address and it's going to route to the physical machine based on the MAC address. So I've got an IP address that makes life a little bit easier to manage. Now a URL, which is really an IP address, it's just a little bit nicer because that's a human word, basically going through the same principle. So I'm going to say, hey, connect here. It's going to make its connection, and then using the three-way handshake, the SYN, SYNAC, and ACK, then the 2003 knows that the XP connected to it. So it's going to say, okay, I'm going to connect back to 66.7 or the 3F. So at this point, we established a connection back and forth. So with that connection, we're dealing with routers. Routers are extremely smart. It has intelligence built into it to help the XP machine talk to 2003, and the router saying, hey, I don't need to pass all this stuff down to the Tiger box. Before we had routers, we had hubs, and hubs were really stupid. If anybody was sitting connected into a hub, you saw all traffic. It didn't matter if it pertained to you or not. When we're dealing with a router, we're eliminating a lot of the congestion by only keeping pertinent things going back and forth. So XP will talk to 2003, 2003 will respond back to XP, and the Tiger box, even though it's connected to the same router, won't see all of that traffic going back and forth because it doesn't need to. Now, if a hacker is sitting hooked up to that connection, he may want to, but with the way that the router is configured, won't allow him to unless he does some ARP poisoning. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be doing ARP poisoning. So what the hacker is going to do, I'm going to be the Tiger box, I'm going to be running a packet sniffer, and I really want to know what XP is saying to 2003 and what 2003 is saying to XP. So the first thing the Tiger box is going to do is it's going to start spewing out fake ARP traffic. So the Tiger box is going to say, oh yeah, 66.7, that MAC address is actually ending in a 1B. And oh yeah, that 66.5, that MAC address is ending in a 1B. So it's going to start telling the XP machine that the IP address to the 2003 is actually the Tiger box's MAC address. So the Tiger box is going to tell everybody that the IP addresses mapping to each other really map to the hardware address of the Tiger box. So now the XP machine is going to try FTPing to the 2003 machine. So it's going to say, oh, I want to go to 66.5, and the machine is actually going to connect to the Tiger box. The Tiger box then is going to pass that request over to the 2003. So when the 2003 thinks that it's responding back to the XP machine, it's actually responding back to the Tiger box, and the Tiger box then will hand it back to the XP. The Tiger box is actually acting as the man in the middle. So 2003 hands its request to the Tiger box. The Tiger box, of course, will read the request, but then pass it to the XP. The XP then will take some information, passing it to the Tiger box, thinking that it's passing it to the 2003 server, but the 2003 server doesn't get it. The Tiger box gets it. Then the Tiger box has the ability to read the contents and hand it back to the 2003. So this is the way an ARP attack works. So we're going to use software to make this a lot easier. The software is going to automatically spew out all of the invalid MAC addresses. And the way that it works is the Tiger box is going to poison the ARP stream faster than the XP is actually updating the ARP request. So the XP may actually say, hey, this is my MAC address. It ends in a 3F. But by the time the 2003 server updates it, the Tiger box is going to say, oh yeah, 66.7 XP, that really just got updated to 1B. So the Tiger box is just updating at a faster rate than the XP machine is updating. And that's what allows this to happen. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got my 2003 server set up. I want to make sure that I've got my Windows XP desktop set up, and I also want my Tiger box booted up, but I want the Tiger box to be booted up in Windows. So I'm basically going to have two XP machines and one Server 2003. If my Tiger box does not have Wireshark installed on it, I want to make sure Wireshark is installed.